Hey everybody, my name is Jonathan, and I'd like to just bring up some information to kind of challenge your thought process wherever you are in life. So where I'm at currently in life is I'm 38 years old. Um, and everything that I'm doing now is focused on my daughter. So before I started, before my daughter, I started collecting everything in 2019. I started into the hobby. I went pretty hard and heavy, and not expecting to have a child. Now that I have a child, everything's kind of being reassessed on a continuous basis. And so I wanted to bring up some information to you that really makes me kind of focus on some stuff. And I want to present it to you and just you do with it what you may, right? And so first and foremost, I want to talk about I don't want to talk about it. I want to have an expert actually present something, a little bit of information. I'm just going to play a couple clips. His name, I forget his name, but this is his channel, Financial Fastlane. This is his video from how long ago? It was 4 months ago. 5 good reasons to file for Social Security at age 62. Now, I don't care about the whole 62 thing. He presents a couple bits of information that I think you should just be aware of, and then really kind of take a breath and think about what that means for you and where you are in life currently. So here's the clips.
For a female, age 65, her average life expectancy is age 86. For a man, it's age 85. Now, those are the averages. And so that means 50% of us will live beyond those ages, right? And so we really do live longer nowadays. The fastest growing segment of the U.S. population is people age 85 and older. I mean, think about that. That is the fastest growing segment of our population. It is projected in 28 years from now that there will be 1 million Americans that are age 100 or more.
Okay, so now that you see life expectancy totals, and you can actually see that it's growing, right? That your life expectancy is even further out. So if you make it to the age of 65 as a male, I'm going to just stick with male because it's me, as a male, the average expectancy is 85 currently. So if I can make it to 65, and I'm 38 now, so we're talking about 27 years from now, if I can make it the next 27 years, there is a general accepted or expectation, as long as I'm still in decently good health, I'll make it to 85, another 20 years. So that's 47 more years, and I'm only 38, so that's more than double my life. And I didn't play it, but in his video, he talks about his father who had open heart surgery 30 years ago, and if he was born a generation before, his father would have died because the technology wasn't there to keep him alive. His father ended up living until almost the age of 94. He got an extra 30 years because of medical science. And in 27 years, when I turn 65, who knows what the medical science will be at that time, where even that expectation of 85 might actually become 90, right? So you have to really take all these variables into everyday decisions. I know that sounds crazy because who the hell looks at that far in the future? But I have almost died many, many times, and I should have died many times in Iraq and in Afghanistan. And just and me just doing dumb stuff as a young man who was obsessed with alcohol for a very long time. I should have died probably many, many times over. And it became evident around the age of 25 for me. And then again, when I hit 30, that, okay, it doesn't look like I'm going to die from me being stupid. You know, either something dramatic has to happen that's outside of my control, or I'm just going to grow old and die like the American dream. I think that's the real American dream, living until you die peacefully in your sleep. That's, you can't take your stuff with you. But anyways, so when I realized, oh, I'm not going to die, that's when I started being like, oh, I got to actually plan for my future. In that future, I didn't really expect to have a child. I was actually told I wouldn't be able to. So I made different decisions. But But now that I have a child, reassessing. So for you, if you haven't had the moment in your life where you're like, oh, it looks like I'm actually going to live the average lifespan, maybe I should start planning for it. Like if you haven't had that moment in your life, I get it. Look, I lived paycheck to paycheck for a very long time. I lived bottle to bottle for a very long time. So I get it. Nobody's going to be able to convince you otherwise until you have that moment. That's just one of those things in life. So anyways, for me, hearing from somebody much smarter than I am that I am potentially going to live for till 85, another 47 years for me, and that if technology increases, I might actually hit 100. Right? You have this whole population of baby boomers that are expected to hit 100. Over 1 million people will be in triple digits by 2050. That's crazy, right? Like really absorb that for a minute and what kind of implications that means for everybody. So I want to bring up a couple things. One specifically about sports cards. We're going to talk about baseball. And then the other thing talking about retirement income. Okay, so kind of stick with me. Here we go. So baseball. This came up because somebody that I engage with on YouTube on a regular basis, Clemente Collector, he brought up a point about in 50 years he expects to hand off his cards to his children. And I was talking about like, will baseball even be recognized in 50 years as what it is today? Will people actually care about Roberto Clemente or his era of baseball, which in 50 years may not even exist or be recognizable? There won't be any kind of emotional connection for anybody to those points in 50 years. Like, is America still America? Who knows, right? Like, so like, it's interesting to think about what we do now and how it might impact our children and what's the world going to look like in 50 years. Because I might actually be here. You might actually be here in 50 years. So let's try to like think about things, right? So one of the things that I thought was interesting was the 2023 rule changes. So for instance, we have the actual timer to make the game faster, right? So that's just another element that's taking away from that baseball that Roberto Clemente, for instance, played in a very long time ago. And it really started getting me another thing that I didn't know they were doing. Where is this? Well, first of all, the defensive shift, so you can't do the defensive shift anymore. I mean, that's been around my whole life, and that's gone. You're not going to see 3 players on one side of the diamond anymore. So that's good. So like it's breaking away from my emotional connections to the game, right? So maybe that'll make my emotional connections to my era of baseball even stronger. But the next generation of people, collectors or fans or whatever, might really not connect with anything of my generation of baseball. Just like I don't connect with like the Babe Ruth era of baseball. Like there's nothing there that, you know, it's I actually really kind of idolized Babe Ruth when I was a kid because like he would eat all these hot dogs, you know, and just, he was just a dude, you know, he was a man. He's just out there just hitting homers. It was freaking cool. But anyways, like the more they change the game, like look at this, bigger bases. The bases are bigger for safety reasons. But if you really think about it, right here, fielders have an extra 3-inch advantage to stay out of harm's way. 3 inches. 3 inches. Well, think about what that's going to do for stolen bases. Like in my mind, I'm just like, well, you're making those split second, you know, yeah, they have virtual freaking cameras to make the decision of whether or not the tag was applied right in that split second. Well, how many more stolen bases are we going to get now? Right? I mean, I'm sure Ricky Henderson would appreciate the 3 extra inches, but, you know, so like the stats continue to be altered and changed, right? Like, is baseball going to be baseball in 50 years? So I just wanted to show some other changes throughout history. This is by baseballalmanac.com. And there's a lot of weird little things in here that it just makes it so interesting to me. So take your time and really check this out and think about the heroes of baseball during these time frames and what they were playing with and how different that's going to be moving forward, right? And so one of the things in here, for instance, right, the National League no longer has designated hitters. I mean, now only has designated. They no longer allow their pitchers to hit. The only pitcher that will hit home runs now is freaking Shohei Ohtani. He's going. That's it. Like, you're not going to see some random relief pitcher go yard. Like, that was always so exciting. Like, it was always like, oh, pitcher easy out. And then if they hit a home run, it was like so exciting. And that's over. There's all kinds of like little things. Like, for instance, whoever is the current National League pitcher home run record, whatever that is, that's it. That's it. There's no pitcher that hits both ways in the National League that hits and pitches like Shohei Ohtani. So whoever's the current home run record leader for pitchers in the National League, that's it. You know what I mean? Like, baseball's completely different. And so in 50 years, how many other rule changes will there be? Just something to think about. And how does that impact whether or not, like, will that drastically make people love the old way of baseball more? Or will it create an entire generation, the future generations, to just not have a connection with the former way baseball was played? Right? So think about that. I think that's an interesting twist, a little thing. I think there's, everybody's going to there's going to be always fans and collectors of baseball. But this has to have some kind of impact, right? So I don't know what the level of impact's going to be. Is it going to be positive? Is it going to be negative? I don't know, but I'm challenging you to really think about that, right? And then make financial decisions if you're a collector investor type of person based off of whatever your brain deduces from these kind of things, these kind of bits of information. I'm still going to go only after like the potential legends. I think Clayton Kershaw, for instance, is a potential legend. I'm thinking I'm going to collect more of his. I think Shohei Ohtani is a potential legend. I'm going to collect more of his. But just because I think they're legends, in 50 years, will they give a crap about him? I can't even name you a bunch of Hall of Famers because I don't have an emotional connection to it. Right? So it's just interesting to think about. And we all got to make our own decisions. And so I'm just trying to give you some more information. All right. So that's baseball. And you can apply that to everything. I just brought up baseball, but I mean, obviously this applies to football, basketball, lacrosse, whatever you want to talk about. All right. This is really interesting to me. So Social Security, if it still exists in, let's see, I'm 38. So if it still exists in 24 years, if it still exists in 24 years, I'll be 62. Okay, so then I will be collecting Social Security. I'm going to actually collect early, probably based off of my current information and knowledge. I'm going to collect at 62 and allow my retirement accounts to just continue to grow for, I don't know, maybe until I'm 70, and then I'll start pulling out. I think required minimum distributions happen at like 70 or something. But anyways, if Social Security even makes it that far, right? Like, the amount of money you make, first of all, it's not that much. And I don't know if you know this, but it's taxable. It's taxable. Watch this guy's video. He gives you a lot of great lessons. A lot of people do. So if you don't know, 85% of this might actually be taxed depending on your other income. Obviously, you have other income, though, to make up for that. But anyways, Social Security. So many people depend on Social Security to be there when they are done working at 62. So there's two things about this that a lot of people don't really think about. One, at the age of 62, you're very unlikely to be hired. It's just talk to somebody over the age of 60 and ask if they were to apply for a new job. Actually ask them to do it. If they're not currently working, ask them to apply for a job and see if they get hired. See if they make it past the interview. There is constant age discrimination. It's a real thing. And a lot of people who watch YouTube aren't really aware of that because they're watching YouTube. The generation demographics that watch YouTube aren't retired, really. Like, not a lot of them. And the ones that are, they know exactly what I'm talking about. It's very hard to get a good paying job, especially like manual labor or like a trade. If you're perceived as maybe physically less than a younger person, and it's very hard to get a technical job, and it's very hard to get a white collar job with a lot of responsibilities because you are perceived as less than because of your age. It is 100% a fact. The majority of hiring that is done is not for people above the age of 60. So you have to be prepared to be discriminated against when you hit 60. If you're not already in a position that's you've already proven yourself and they're good with you, and you don't have to like fight for work or to justify your paycheck, you're good. However, if you do retire and you're like, you know what, I'm going to hang it up and I'm going to just travel for the rest of my life, and you're 62 or between 60 and 70, you have to realize it's very unlikely that you will get rehired somewhere. You have to start your own job basically, or you have to know somebody who will hire you. So you have to think about that, because otherwise this is the amount of money you're going to be earning unless you did very smart things with savings. Now, speaking of savings, another reason I wanted to bring this up is if people live to the age of 100, the government is paying $1 million in 28 years, 1 million people Social Security, 1 million of them, so into their hundreds, right? Like this is for the rest of your life. Social Security is for the rest of your life. So the government is just giving at least 1 million people in 28 years money every month to just keep breathing. They did not plan on the lifespan of a human being in the triple digits for so many people. That means the tax burden on the younger generation, us and our kids, will be much higher because they have to pay for all those baby boomers getting them free paychecks. You have to think about this, right? So that's going to be a very large stressor on this. So either they're going to raise taxes or they're going to have to do something, right? So if you don't want to depend on Social Security, you have to save money. So what does that even mean? Right? What does that even mean? So this website, this is thebalancedmoney.com. You can take a look. They basically talk about the 5% rule, and then they talk about the 4% rule and the 3% rule. But basically, if you wanted to have $1,000 per month in retirement, you would fall. This is their design with the 5% rule. You would need $240,000 in whatever, like a 401k or whatever that will have distributions. I am not super economically smart guy. Okay, I'm not. But I understand the basics and I can read, right? So, if I was to retire at 62 and I wanted $1,000 a month, I would need $240,000 in the bank. So, like they say, if you want $2,000 a month, you need $480,000. This is not complex math. You double it. Okay? Now they're talking about the 4% rule, the 5% rule, but how long does the 5% rule last you? It's 20 years. It's right here. Retirement often lasts for more than 20 years, But the 5% rule, your money will last 20 years if you withdraw 5% while earning no interest on it. So if your $480,000, if your rate of return is higher than 5%, it'll last a little bit longer. But based off of inflation, based off of interest rates and everything else, you have to adjust. So you're not even guaranteed $2,000 a month if you have $480,000 saved. Because then it's only 20 years, which if I retire at 62, it'll only take me to 82. What if I live to 92? Then you got 2 years of no money other than Social Security, if it exists. So you have to think about this. You need at least $500,000 to just get $2,000 a month. And that will only last you for 20 years. Think about that. If I become 100 years old and I wanted to take out 5% a month of my retirement, the expectation is it'll last 20 years. I would have to retire at 80. At 80. With $500,000. Like, just think about it. So they talk about doing the 4% rule. They talk about even doing a 3% rule if you retire earlier, or you start collecting at an earlier age. But you have to think about these. And again, if this money runs out because you lived longer than you expected, you're going to be dependent on Social Security. But there's no guarantee it'll be there. Don't forget, the digital dollar project is going on. Digital dollars. I don't know, I have no idea if people's 401ks, Social Security benefits will be transferred into digital currency. I have no idea. Are they just going to give you credit? Like for every dollar you have in the stock market, they're going to give you $1 of digital currency? I don't know. But my guess is they won't. My guess is they won't. My guess is they're going to say, hey, we now have a digital dollar. Feel free to invest with this money. And then you have to start investing with that to withdraw that. Otherwise, you're going to have to pay to convert your cash to digital cash. This scares me because a lot of people are going to potentially, I don't know. I don't know. But I know the government is a living thing and it's all about survival of the fittest, right? It's an animal. The government is a living freaking thing. It's made up of many different politicians. But it's a living thing and it wants to survive. Baby boomers getting Social Security with lower and lower population numbers for each generation afterwards, trying to support them getting free money into the triple digits, doesn't sound like it'll be very beneficial for the health of the government, which is an animal. It's alive. I believe they're going to just transition to the digital dollar. I think they're going to screw over a lot of people. There'll also be a minimum distribution in digital currency, whatever that is. Probably some kind of handouts or report to your local, your local distribution center for your bread and cheese for the month. This stuff is real, and the fact that we're living longer should really be something you take into consideration when making your decisions, even in collectibles, but your daily life, right? What are you going to do? Thinking, whatever your age you are, you might live to 100. And you most likely will not get a new job after the age of 60. I mean, not even after the age of 50. You better have a job you love. And have a job where they're not going to fire you, a stable, secure job at the age of 50, because discrimination is crazy. It really is. It's really hard to get a new job after the age of 50. So take all these things into consideration, because if you put your money into baseball cards, football, whatever, make sure you don't need that money to live on when you're 85 and you need a freaking respirator, or you need a nurse to come into your house and take care of you. This money into baseball, make sure it's disposable. It's money that you really truly don't need in the future, because first of all, baseball might not even be baseball then. Second of all, you might need that money for your meds. Take care, everybody.